On April 2nd, 2025, a high school track meet in Frisco, Texas turned tragic when 17-year-old Austin Metcalf was fatally stabbed. The alleged perpetrator? Another 17-year-old, Karmelo Anthony. This incident not only shocked the local community, but also ignited national debates on self-defense, race, and justice.
Good afternoon. My name is Kayla Hayes. I am the mother of Karmelo Anthony. 3 years ago, my family moved to North Texas searching for a better life. Like so many other families, we wanted to give our children the future we did not have. My husband worked hard every single day to provide for us, to make sure we're in the best financial position possible. As a stay-at-home mom, I made it my life's mission to ensure our children are loved, nurtured, and supported every step of the way. In wake of this tragic incident, our family has been under attack. Whatever you think what happened between Karmelo and the Metcalf boys, my 3 younger children, my husband, and I didn't do anything to deserve to be threatened, harassed, and lied about. The lies and false accusations that have been said about us, especially over the past week, has been overwhelming.
The afternoon of April 2nd was supposed to be just another day of competition and camaraderie at Kirkendall Stadium in Frisco, Texas. Hundreds of high school students, their families, and supporters gathered to cheer on athletes at the UIL District 11 5A Championship track meet. The energy was vibrant, teams were setting up tents, athletes were stretching and preparing, and coaches were giving their final pep talks. No one could have predicted that within hours, a life would be lost and countless others would be forever changed. 17-year-old Austin Metcalf, a rising football star from Frisco Memorial High School, was attending to support his teammates. Known for his leadership, athleticism, and fierce competitiveness, Austin was highly respected among his peers. But respect, it seems, would become a central issue that afternoon. Nearby, under the Memorial High School team tent, another young man had sought shelter, Karmelo Anthony, also 17 years old, a football player from rival school Frisco Centennial High School. According to multiple witnesses, Anthony had placed his belongings under the memorial tent, an area designated for memorial team members only. This simple act, some say an innocent mistake, others claim it was provocation, would become the spark that ignited tragedy. Witnesses later told authorities that Austin approached Anthony asking him to move because Karmelo was not a student at Memorial. Some say the exchange grew heated almost immediately. Others suggest that it was Austin who escalated the situation, physically confronting Anthony. Either way, the interaction was clearly tense. Anthony, feeling threatened, reportedly warned Metcalf, "Touch me and see what happens." At some point during the encounter, Anthony reached into his backpack. Inside his backpack, he carried a black folding knife with a roughly 5-inch blade. Why would Karmelo Anthony feel the need to have a knife at a track meet? Some supporters argue that he carried it for protection, citing personal safety concerns. Others question why a high school student would be armed at a public, heavily supervised event. According to witnesses, what happened next unfolded in mere seconds. As Metcalf, according to reports, grabbed or shoved Anthony, Anthony pulled the knife from his backpack and thrust it into Metcalf's chest with a single devastating blow. The wound pierced deeply, critical enough that Austin immediately collapsed onto the grass. Chaos erupted. Witnesses screamed for help. Coaches, parents, and even some medically trained spectators rushed to Austin's side. 911 was called, and within minutes, emergency medical responders arrived. Despite every effort, Austin Metcalf succumbed to his injury. The coroner later confirmed that he died from a stab wound to the chest that punctured his heart.
We got it wrong. We got it all wrong, you guys. Karmelo Anthony did not have a knife. He did not have a knife to stab Austin with. It was a cleat sharpener.
Well, he shouldn't have brought a knife to school. Whole time he didn't even have a knife. He had a cleat sharpener because they were at a track meet. So that child did not have a knife on campus. He had a cleat sharpener.
I did not know, man. That completely changes nothing. Because what is a cleat sharpener? So I Googled it. And basically, it's all bull. That's a lie. Another lie debunked. Cleats, you unscrew and you screw in new cleats. I've looked. I looked all through Google. You guys can do the same thing. I have not found a cleat sharpener ever. It's sad that Austin has not been able to rest in peace this entire time. Because people are really trying to justify Karmelo Anthony's actions. And it's very simple, you guys. Because the police report said that they retrieved the knife with his DNA on it and Austin's DNA on it. Did you guys read the police report? A cleat sharpener.
Do you think Karmelo Anthony meant to kill Austin Metcalf? We all agree he did, but did he mean to? Was that his intent? This does matter. Intent and premeditation is the difference between manslaughter, first degree, second degree murder. Reports are Karmelo Anthony struck Austin Metcalf once in the chest/heart, ditched the murder weapon. When the police found him, he was allegedly in hysterics, crying, asking if Austin was okay. We all agree we probably all agree that Karmelo was definitely trying to scare him. We can all probably agree that Karmelo Anthony was trying to hurt him in that moment. But was he trying to kill him? Do you think he was aiming for his heart? It's never good to get stabbed in the torso area, but do you think he was going for a kill shot, or do you think it just happened that he struck him once and it hit something vital and he didn't make it? Let me know in the comments and follow for more.
Police report says Karmelo Sincere Anthony, height 5'9", 130 pounds, black hair, brown eyes, born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Charge type first-degree felony, 09990030. Report by Officer Eduardo Cortez. Adult male was taken into custody following a stabbing call on FISD property. Initial narrative by Officer Eduardo Cortez. On April 2nd, 2025, at 101 hours, ICE Daily School Resource Officer E. Cortez heard over the radio dispatch call out a stabbing call at David Kendall Stadium, 6927-A Stadium Lane, Frisco, Collin County, Texas. FPD call notes indicated that an athlete was stabbed. The suspect was reported as being a black male wearing a gray hoodie and blue sweatpants. I immediately left my office and ran across the Staley Middle School parking, 6927 Stadium Lane, Frisco, Texas, lot, towards a southwest entrance into the stadium. As I entered the stadium, 2 high school-age students informed me that the victim was on the north end of stadium by the bleachers under the Memorial High School tent. I did not identify these students. Next, I proceeded towards the north end of the stadium, visitors' side on foot. As I got closer to the north end, I could see the Memorial High School tent with multiple individuals under the tent. Once I arrived onto the north side bleachers, an adult male who was on the track pointed out the suspect. I was not able to identify that witness. The individual that was pointed out to me was a black male wearing a gray hooded sweater and dark-colored Nike pants. The suspect at this point was on the track on the north end. There was a chain-link fence that separated me from the suspect. I gave the suspect instructions to keep his hands up in the air. During this time, the suspect said verbally out loud, "I was protecting myself." It should be noted that I had not questioned him about the incident when he made that comment. I asked him if he had any weapons and he said no. I patted him down for weapons while we were walking along the fence. I did not locate any on his person. I instructed the male to continue walking along the fence, which he complied, towards an area where there was an opening in the fence that led off the track. While walking him off the track, the suspect also said he put hands on me. I then detained the suspect in handcuffs behind his back, and had him sit down on the ground. Officer A. Ricci had arrived on the scene at the time. I conducted another pat-down of his person, and then searched his person after he gave me consent. No weapons were located. While the suspect sat on the ground, I advised that I had the alleged suspect. The suspect then responds and says, "I'm not alleged, I did it." Next, Officer Ricci and I walked the suspect to patrol vehicle number 2412. This is Officer A. Ricci's patrol vehicle, which was on the northeast gate of Kendall Stadium. As we were walking to the squad car, the suspect was emotional and said, "He put hands on me." I told him not to. I did not question the suspect about the incident while he was escorted to the patrol vehicle. I searched his person once again, and I had him sit in the back seat area, driver's side of patrol vehicle 2412. While the suspect was in the back seat, I noticed fresh blood on his left middle finger. I verbally acknowledged that I saw blood out loud so that it would be captured on my body-worn camera. It should also be noted that the suspect asked me, "Is he going to be okay?" while he was in the back seat. I then identified the suspect. He provided his name and date of birth verbally as Karmelo Anthony, with a date of birth, which I ran through FPD dispatch. Officer J. Hancock arrived on the scene and remained with me and the suspect at this point. Karmelo was then checked via eSchool database for FISD students to also confirm his identity. The identifying information he provided matched the individual I had in custody, Karmelo Anthony. Next, I was advised by Sergeant Holland to transport the subject to the Frisco PD jail. Officer Hancock and I transported him to the FPD jail. Again, I did not question Karmelo about the incident. Page 3 of the Frisco Police Department Arrest Report, Officer Otis Will. On Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025, at around 1001 hours, Frisco Police Department officers were dispatched to Frisco Independent School District, FISD, David Kendall Stadium, 6927 Stadium Lane, Number A, Frisco, Collin County, Texas, in reference to a stabbing victim call. Frisco Police Department Emergency Communications was receiving an emergency call regarding an athlete that was stabbed. The originally unknown assailant was a black male wearing a gray hoodie and blue sweatpants, and also had a goatee and short hair. The subject was possibly wearing a Centennial High School Centennial attire, as it was believed he was a student for the sporting event. This had all taken place on the visitors' side of the stadium, north side, and the victim was under the Memorial High School memorial tent in the bleachers. At around the same time, School Resource Officer SRO Cortez arrived on the scene and began assisting the victims, trainers, and other parties. Officer Cortez also advised on the radio that he also had the suspect. Sergeant Otis was working the 50s sector as the sergeant. He was in full Frisco Police Department uniform with distinct patches and a badge and a police duty belt. He was also in a marked Frisco Police Department patrol vehicle, number 2315. He was relatively close to the call and placed himself on it at about 10:02 hours and responded to the call with his patrol vehicle's overhead emergency lights and sirens activated. He arrived to the call at around 10:06 hours. Sergeant Otis arrived to the stadium and began walking up to the location. At around this time, Officer Cortez and Officer Ricci were walking a black male subject, the suspect, away from the stadium. The suspect was crying hysterically. Please see other involved officers' narratives for their involvement. Frisco Police Department Arrest Report, page 4, states the victim, Austin, and the suspect, who was later identified as Karmelo Anthony. Anthony was from Centennial High School and was sitting under the Memorial High School tent. Austin had told Anthony that he needed to move out from underneath their team's tent, and Anthony grabbed his bag, opened it, and reached inside and proceeded to tell Austin, "Touch me and see what happens." No one really thought Anthony really had any weapons in his bag, and Austin proceeded to touch Anthony, and then Anthony told Austin to punch him and see what happens. A short time later, Austin grabbed Anthony to tell him to move, and Anthony pulled out what redacted name recalled as a black knife and stabbed Austin once in the chest and then ran away. Austin began grabbing his chest and telling everyone to get help. Redacted name advised he did not know Anthony's name, but another Memorial Track member, redacted name, was friends with Anthony and he could identify Anthony. Redacted name described Anthony as a black male, skinny with possibly a goatee, short puffy hair, and wearing Centennial High School clothing. This concluded my contact with redacted name. I then was instructed to start a crime scene log. I retrieved a crime scene log from my patrol vehicle and began starting the crime scene log. I was later relieved by OFC Shells, who took over the crime scene log, and I cleared the scene. Nothing further attached to the original report. Officer Hancock Jerry, today 4/2/25, while working as the CRO at Independence High School, 10555 Independence Parkway, Collin County, a weapons call was dispatched over the air that detailed a stabbing occurred at Coquendo Stadium in Frisco, Texas. After hearing more dispatched call information, I drove to the scene. While en route, I heard Officer Cortez say he has the suspect in custody. When I got on scene, I looked for Officer Cortez and went straight to him to hold security with the suspect that he had cuffed and secured in the police squad. Multiple witnesses were providing statements to officers where the stabbing occurred at the Memorial High School track tent. Only a short time later, Officer Cortez and myself escorted the suspect, Karmelo Sincere Anthony, to the Frisco Adult Holding Facility. Anthony was transitioned off to the jail staff without incident. All jail paperwork was completed, and CID took the investigation from there. Officer Fisher Alvin reports, on Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025, at about 10:05 hours, I, Officer A. Fisher, number 3696, was dispatched to 6927 Stadium Lane, number A, Frisco, Collin County, Texas, 75034, in regards to a stabbing. The note stated an athlete had been stabbed in the chest, was unconscious, and not breathing. When I arrived, the crime scene was already marked off, and a suspect was in custody. I began asking people if they were witnesses to anything. I made contact with Hunter. They were both breathing heavily and crying due to the nature of events. They were with coaches on the field and it was pouring down rain. We made the decision to relocate to a locker room just to the east to get out of the rain. Once in there, things calmed a little bit. However, they were still hysterical and could not really talk. In there, I learned Hunter was the brother of the victim. I attempted to ask them both what happened. I could not really get anything out of Hunter, but Redacted stated he wanted to speak. I asked him what happened, and he stated they were all sitting on the bleachers under the Memorial High School tent when another male, who he did not know, walked over and sat under the tent. Redacted then said Austin, the victim, told this male that since he did not go to Memorial, he had to leave the tent. Austin and the male went back and forth, and then Austin stood up and pushed the male to get him out of the tent. It had said during this time of arguing, the male was reaching around in his bag he had. It was at this time the male took out a knife and stabbed Austin, then left the scene. This was all Redacted remembered when he talked to me. After this, I then stood by 3 athlete witnesses until CID arrived and interviewed them. I was then relieved by an SRO and went back to patrol. Nothing further. Officer Mike Crawford's report says, on 4/2/25 at approximately 1000 hours, I, Lieutenant M. Crawford, number 3095, was dispatched to Coquendo Stadium at 6927 A Stadium Lane in Frisco, Collin County, Texas, in reference to a stabbing. I arrived on the scene and observed medical personnel and several bystanders standing next to a subject later identified as the victim, Austin. The medical personnel were actively engaged in life-saving measures with Mr. Metcalf. I observed that a crime scene was created around the area and began collecting the names and contact information of the bystanders within the scene. I then met with Officer Wetzel and directed him to begin a crime scene log. As he was getting the needed paperwork, I took over his responsibilities of monitoring a witness. Redacted to the event. Ultimately, the witness was taken to another area out of the rain, and Officer Salles took over the crime scene log, and I forwarded information about the bystanders to him. Officer Jacob Shells, date 4/2/25. On Wednesday, 4/2/25, OFC Shells was working as the SRO at the Student Opportunity Center at approximately 1001 hours. I was dispatched to a stabbing that occurred at David Coquendo Stadium, located at 6927 Stadium Lane, Frisco, Collin County, Texas. It should be noted that my location is approximately 200 yards from the stadium. Upon my arrival, I tried to get an update on location of the suspect. I could not see OFC Cortez when I arrived. OFC Cortez informed over the radio that he had the suspect in custody. At the time, I turned my attention to the victim. Multiple FISD trainers were already performing CPR. I could see blood on and around the victim. At this time, medics arrived and began life-saving measures. I coordinated with other officers on the scene to secure the location. By this time, the students and FISD staff had cleared the area. I used crime scene tape and began to tape off the area. It began to rain harder at this time. Sergeant Otis and myself moved a Memorial High School tent over the medics and the victim to attempt and preserve any evidence that we could. A Memorial coach approached me and informed me that he was with the student who claimed to see the entire altercation. I told the coach to stick with the student and that we need to get him to the police station to give a statement. The student quickly informed me that he knew where the suspect threw the knife and pointed me to its location. I located the knife with Sergeant Otis and could see blood on the knife. I quickly used my city-issued phone to take pictures before the rain could wash the blood away. Sergeant Otis located a blue tarp, and we decided that we should cover the knife without touching it in an attempt to preserve any evidence. It was windy and raining hard. Once we positioned the tarp over the knife, I reached down and grabbed a backpack left in the stands to weigh the tarp down and threw it up by where Sergeant Otis was positioning the tarp. It was later discovered that the backpack I threw on the tarp was the suspect's backpack. It was the only Centennial High School backpack located within all of the Memorial High School backpacks in the area of the stands. After securing the scene with crime scene tape and attempting to preserve as much evidence as possible, I assisted other officers with locating other possible witnesses. OFC Wetzel was maintaining scene security while I was assisting with other officers. After the medics transported the victim, I relieved him of that post so he could go back to patrol. I maintained the scene security until the call was cleared. Photos will be uploaded to the crime scene folder, and my body cam will be downloaded at the end of the shift. No further information at this time. Officer Kyle Pemberton reports that on 4/2/25 at approximately 10:04 hours, I, Lieutenant K. Pemberton, number 3411, responded to 6927A Stadium Lane, Frisco, Collin County, Texas, in response to a reported stabbing. This location is a school stadium. Call notes advised a male had been stabbed and was unconscious. Upon arrival, several officers and medical personnel were attending to the victim, who was laying on the ground of the stadium bleachers. I coordinated the Frisco PD response in trying to establish a crime scene. The knife reported to have been used in the assault was located by another officer in the bleachers. Shortly after my arrival, a large downpour of rain began. I directed several officers to use a tarp found on the scene to cover the location of the knife. I remained on the scene until the victim was transported and the crime scene was established. Officer Justin Newton reported that on 4/2/25, I responded to Texas Health Plano to assist with the case. I was tasked with meeting the ambulance at the hospital. I arrived prior to the ambulance and waited for them to arrive. They arrived at 10:46 hours with the victim, Austin, who was brought into the trauma bay for treatment at 10:53 hours. Dr. Chow pronounced Austin deceased. Once he was pronounced, staff stopped treatment and disconnected cords and tubes from the machines without removing anything from the body itself. While on scene, I took possession of clothing worn by Austin and maintained possession of the items until CSI Dillard took them from me. While on scene, Officer Landon requested assistance in lifting the sheets off the body to take photos. I then placed the sheets back when complete. I then stood by in the room for security while Officer Landon, Officer Hernandez, and CSI Dillard took additional photos. At one point, they rolled the body and removed shorts from Austin, which were bagged and stayed in my custody until CSI took them. At 13:24 hours, family was allowed into the scene to view the body. I was informed by staff and officers that they would be allowed to touch the head and feet of Austin, which they did. At 13:37 hours, nurses from the hospital bagged Austin in a body bag. At 15:15 hours, transport service for medical examiner arrived and took possession of the body. Tag. Pages 6 and 7 pretty much repeats pages 1 through 5 from Officers Andrew Higgins, Officer Thomas Craig, Officers Alejandro Velez, and Officer Joshua Miller, with some security details and redacted witness names and titles. A link to the police report will be in the video description.
Jake Long called Austin's father, Jeff Metcalf, asking for him to stand with the group. KERA News caught it on camera.
And I grew up as a 17-year-old young white man, too. And I grew up in fear of my life around black people because they were killing and robbing people around me all the time. And I don't understand, as I was a father, you could sit idly by and not condemn the culture that killed your son. There is an epidemic problem in this country, and your voice could be one of the loudest voices in this country, but you've chosen to recoil out of fear and continue the suppression. Why will you not stand with me and with the rest of the people? We're not calling for racial divide. We're not calling for hatred. We're saying 350,000 attacks on white people by black people a year in this country is wrong. Why can't you stand that and say with that? Maybe you can. Would you be willing to stand by me in a press conference or in an individual interview and talk about this issue that is larger than Austin at this point? God rest the beautiful young man's soul that would have been one of our strongest voices if he was still alive today.
Are you done?
Yes, I am, sir.
Okay, my turn to speak. You are part of the problem, my friend. You're trying to create more race divide than bridging the gap. I do not condone anything you do. You do not have any...
That's called white guilt.
No, let it talk.
Of my son. Let me finish. I give you your time. You take my son's face off your website. I am not associated with you.
You're creating more Austin Metcalfs with your weakness, sir.
Wow. Now, Lang...
News of this tragedy has been spreading rapidly. Social media is ablaze with shock, outrage, and speculation. The Metcalf family has been targeted, while Karmelo's family get the financial freedom to relocate. Hundreds of thousands of dollars donated because they claim to have been threatened. But Karmelo Anthony himself admitted to police that the teens who drove by his home with guns were just toy guns, water guns. The Metcalf family is getting swatted. Do you know how dangerous swatting can be? People have lost their lives due to emergency reports like this. Shortly after the incident, Austin's mother became a victim of swatting. A false report claimed that someone had been shot at her residence. Law enforcement responded with urgency, deploying officers and drones to secure the scene. Fortunately, no one was home, preventing potentially confrontation. Jeff Metcalf, Austin's father, also faced a swatting incident. Following a press conference held by Karmelo Anthony's family, Jeff's home was targeted with a false report of a gunshot. Police responded swiftly, only to find the residence empty. Jeff arrived shortly after confirming that no one was home during the incident. Breitbart reported that this swatting incident occurred on the same day Jeff attended the Anthony family's press conference, from which he was later escorted out by police. Austin's father was there to show compassion and bridge the gap between the families. He said that he has already forgiven Karmelo. God bless him. This man has a strong soul. And in return, he gets kicked out of the press conference and goes home to another swatting incident. The Metcalfs have reportedly been swatted 3 times, and the Anthony family are complaining about getting pizza delivered to their home by pranksters. The Anthonys are claiming to fear for their safety, but I haven't heard of or seen any real evidence of these claims. You see, they need the division. It's the narrative they think will free their son. And I get it. They love their son. But so did Jeff Metcalf. As if this family hasn't already been through enough. He had to resign from his real estate job due to threats and didn't want to put any of his co-workers in any danger. Metcalf said he meant no ill will by showing up at the event. He simply wanted to represent Austin in response to people disparaging him online, painting the late teen as a violent bully. Austin's father said he hoped he could pray with the family of his son's alleged killer, but wound up feeling disrespected. Anthony's parents had previously said Karmelo acted in self-defense when Austin physically attacked him, suggesting they planned to fight their son's first-degree murder charge. President of the Next Generation Action Network, Dominique Alexander, the activist minister who is aiding Karmelo Anthony as their family's spokesperson, has a lengthy criminal history that includes a conviction on child abuse charges and allegations of domestic violence. Dominique Alexander has previously been charged with multiple felonies for which he served almost zero prison time. He was convicted of the charges in 2011, receiving 2 years of probation from a Dallas court. During this probation period, Alexander was indicted on felony forgery charges in January of 2013. In 2017, the minister was arrested on felony theft charges of property between $2,500 and $30,000, garnering a possible 20-year sentence in prison due to his previous forgery conviction. In the most recent legal infraction, Alexander was indicted in 2019 on felony assault charges in a domestic violence case stemming from his actions against then-girlfriend and baby mama, Kiara D. Saunders. Dominique Alexander was upset that Jeff wanted to pray with the Anthonys during the press event. Dominique says, "I was deeply upset by the fact that the father would do what he did. It showed his true colors and proved that, while we were working to handle the situation appropriately, he was undermining the process." Alexander wrote, "It is not an act of mourning. It was a deliberate distraction, an intentional disruption of an important moment. I don't care what anyone says. He had no right to be there." Rest in peace, Austin Metcalf.